Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome learners to this course on low cost building materials and techniques. So in this particular course you will understand about different low cost materials that are available in the market and some techniques which are very much prevalent in low cost construction industry. You will get a glimpse of how to use these low cost materials and construct a building for different purposes. Also with that you will also understand on why there is a need for low cost construction and how does it help us achieve sustainability in the building sector. So it's a very well curated course for at least 12 weeks, wherein it is a three credit course which will be offered by NPTEL and myself Dr. Vishal Chettry. I am working as an assistant professor in the Department of Architecture, Planning and Design at IIT BHU Varanasi, and I will be the convener for this course and will help you understand more on low cost materials and building techniques. We will also understand the materials that has been used by our ancestors in the previous decades and in earlier years, and also some of the modern or recent low cost materials which are being used in building industry. So it's a well designed and well curated course for your overall understanding on low cost building materials and techniques. So also this course is not only meant for architecture students. This course also offers an understanding which is to be utilized, which is of great importance to civil engineers and building professionals. So I welcome you to this course and hope that you will have a great learning from the different lectures that is being prepared under this course. So now let us start with the presentation. So the content of this particular presentation would be a general introduction to the low cost building materials and techniques. Then we will also understand need and demand trends in housing. Thereafter affordability gap, that is where the need of low cost construction has emerged. We will understand what is that actually gap that has occurred in low cost construction and also in general building industry. Then we will understand what is embodied energy, wherein I just now I mentioned that low cost construction also helps you design sustainable buildings. So how does embodied energy as a concept can be a deciding factor in classifying materials as low cost or high cost materials. Plus we will also understand embodied energy in different building materials, environmental impacts due to building, rating systems. As you know that these days buildings are being rated by certain agencies and certain organizations. So what are those rating systems? Then we will also understand green buildings, which is a very booming word in building industry these days. Everyone wants to build or live in a green building, so because people are very conscious of energy savings and utilizing passive way of construction, passive means for their comfort. So in that context, what is green buildings and how does it help you achieve net zero carbon emission or minimize the dependency on non-renewable sources? And along with that we will also understand low cost construction and sustainability, and then we will conclude this particular lecture with some wrap up activities, and also I will show you some topics that we will cover in the next presentation, so that you will be able to link with what you have learned in this presentation that with the next presentation, and some resources and for your further reading will also be shared at the end of this particular presentation. So, to give you a glimpse of low cost building materials and techniques, so low cost building means cost effective and it is a resource efficient construction, isn't it? So, it doesn't only mean that low cost would generally, people perceive that low cost means something which is of either low quality or of very cheap materials, but contrary to that, it is a type of building where we actually try to work around with materials other than the conventional building materials to find alternate building materials through which we can minimize the cost of the building. Along with that, there are certain techniques which can be utilized to minimize the cost of the building. For example, you use such a material which has less of maintenance cost. So in spite of that, if you use materials which are being transported from long distance, so obviously the transportation cost will be added on that material by the supplier or by the vendor to you. So in that case, the cost of the material will increase in some other place from where it is actually manufactured. So that is the reason why these days some materials which are being brought from far distant places costs us much higher than at the place where it is manufactured, because of the transportation cost associated with it. So that is where there are certain techniques we will have to understand that and utilize it in the context where the building is designed. Also, it is a very resource efficient construction. That means that whatever resources we have to use it judiciously. There has to be minimal wastage, proper planning and some design considerations that has to be applied in the planning or in the entire design process of that particular building or space. Then the excess cost can be minimized through these approaches. So that building is actually called a low cost building. It focuses on optimization of materials, as just now I gave you some examples, construction methods. For example, if you are going for modular planning, so modular planning is a kind of an approach generally seen in public spaces. For example, in your hostels, you may have seen that similar rooms are repeated in the entire floor or in the throughout the building. You will find similar floor plan that has been seen. So also it is very much common in IT parks, in academic institutes. So the floor the entire planning that happens in one floor is actually repeated in all the floors. So if you follow the same this particular technique, then what happens is that you minimize the cost that goes on the formwork, or you can also estimate based on whatever construction that has happened in the lower floors. You can estimate how much more material will be required, and if there is any mistake that has happened, you can correctly rectify and reduce the wastage of materials while you construct the upper floor. So these type of construction method or this type of planning is called as modular planning, where a module is fixed. That means a unit is actually designed and there is a repetition of units that happens in the construction. So that is called as modular planning. So if you go for that, then the formwork will be it will be same, it will be repeated again and again, and also the materials will be, if there is any excess material in the which was available to you during the construction of ground floor, the same can be reused again in the construction of upper floor. So this is the advantage of going for modular construction. So moving ahead, low cost construction is also it promotes the use of alternate and locally available materials. So for example, if you are residing in somewhere in Rajasthan, so possibly stone will be very much commonly available to you compared to bricks or to steel and glass. So in that case, stone will be called as low cost material for you. But if you are residing somewhere in Bhopal or somewhere in in Varanasi or in Patna, so probably here you may not get stone that easily as you get in Rajasthan. But so in that in that context, the cost of the materials, if we bring it from Rajasthan, will increase. So in that case, the transportation cost also increases, and that actually exceeds the cost of the material at these locations compared to what we see in Rajasthan. So that is what the advantage of using locally available material is. For example, in case of Assam or in any other northeast region, the bamboo is very much available, or timber is very much available compared to bricks, stones and other conventional building materials. So if we construct a building out using these materials, so possibly the entire cost of construction is comparatively lower than the RCC construction, that is reinforced cement concrete construction. So in that context, the bamboo is much low cost solution. See, but contrary, if I want to construct a residence or a building which is to be constructed of timber or bamboo here in Varanasi, or maybe in Bhopal or in Delhi or Bangalore, so possibly in these places the availability of bamboo is is questionable. It may be available, but from far off places, so the added transportation cost and associated labors will also not be available who have an expertise in constructing these buildings out of this material. So these will add extra cost on the construction. So that is why alternate and locally available materials are are to be promoted in use, and using these we actually reduce the cost of project by at least 15 to 30%. So it is a sizable percentage of the cost that can be reduced provided we use locally available materials. It also, the locally using low cost construction also promotes local materials and skills. So these days it so happens that everyone talks about the USP of each and every region. So today if you go out and see your surroundings and compare that with any other city, if you are residing in some town in Tamil Nadu, if it is a Chennai, or in Kerala it is Trivandrum or Thiruvananthapuram, so possibly the buildings that you see there may be seen very similar to you that with some buildings here in Varanasi or in Bhopal or Delhi. So there is that loss of the touch of the context or the cultural context or the vernacular architectural style of each and every region is missing these days, and every city seems to be very similar to each other. So that is where if we promote local materials and skills, possibly we can create an identity of our city with the use of the vernacular architecture style and the locally available material. So possibly that will give an identity, and that is where a uniqueness to the city can be brought in. Also, if you use local materials and skills, it will reduce the transportation and labor cost, because you have skills and expertise available in that area, and you can minimize these costs. Then it integrates traditional construction knowledge with modern engineering principles. So there is continuous research that is happening on how to reutilize the ancient or our Indian way of designing or constructing buildings that had happened in earlier days with the recent time. So that is where we can integrate the traditional knowledge with the modern principles in case of low cost buildings, because in most of our buildings in older days were generally made using locally available materials. And it also aims to achieve structural safety, durability, comfort and affordability. It is something with the nature itself, that the material that is available in a particular region has something to do with the climate also, and that is why stone houses in Rajasthan provides much better comfort than any RCC construction in Rajasthan. Similarly, in warm and humid regions like Assam or in the entire northeast region, building which is made up of bamboo, which is locally available, provides more comfort and it ensures safety, because the entire region is highly earthquake prone. So using bamboo as a material ensures safety and also provides comfort to the users. So that is, and also it enhances or it helps achieve affordability in construction sector. The next, coming to the need and demand trends in housing. So rapid population growth, urbanization have increased housing demand. So it is very true that in most of the cities, people from nearby towns and villages would come and would come generally for in case of employment, or maybe for getting good education, or for getting good medical care, which may not be available in those towns and villages. So there is lot of migration that is happening in urban areas, and that is where the population has been increasing in urban areas, and you will find there is shortage of houses. And if you just try to see the classification of population that has been coming to these bigger towns, it is majorly the lower middle class, or LIG people who are coming to these towns in search of good education or good health care or good and good facilities and services. So that is why for them it is very difficult to afford a particular building for residence, or for at least staying for a certain amount of time. So in these cases, there is a demand and there is a rising trend in housing demand in this region. So that is where we also have to meet the requirements, and that is only possible through building techniques and through materials which are of which doesn't have high cost. So in that context, low cost construction is highly preferred. And you know that India's urban population is further expected to increase from 35% to at least 40% by 2030. So there is a drastic growth in urbanization that is happening in India, and that is leading to housing demand in urban areas. And also nearly 10 to 12 million people migrate to Indian cities every year in search of employment and better opportunities. So this is the trend I was mentioning about. So due to this, there is a housing demand, and to meet these numbers, because it's not possible for any government to fulfill this much of demand, housing demand, within the limited time period. So there is a need of construction which is low cost. At the same time, it can be it is fast than other traditional building methods. So possibly in these sectors we will understand it in our gradual lectures, how is low cost building materials and techniques helping all these issues to overcome through the application of low cost building materials and techniques. Then growing demand for affordable housing among economically weaker section and LIG group is a fact, and that is where low cost construction also has a major role to play. Expansion of infrastructure and real estate sector accelerates construction activities. So there also there is a need for low cost construction, and government programs like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, PMAY in urban as well as in rural has aimed to build at least 20 plus million affordable houses. It is a vision by the current Prime Minister of India, where it is envisioned that at least by the time we achieve or we complete our 100 years of independence, there should be no one left behind without any roof. So with that vision, the government of India as well as different state governments are trying their best to fulfill the demand of housing for the poor. So in that context, PMAY urban as well as rural has been implemented in most of the states in India. Then understanding more about housing affordability gap, one has to understand that housing affordability actually depends on the income level. So you have to understand that out of X amount that a person gets as a monthly income, how much of that one can utilize it for building amount of some amount of money with the person, so that can be utilized for at least construction of a building for the family at least. So that has to be understood. So it is generally seen that at least 10 to 15% of the entire salary goes for the monthly expenses, then remaining 10 to 15% goes for the education of the children, then remaining 10 to 50% goes on the transportation and all the other expenses. Thereafter some medical emergency also is a part of monthly expenditure. Along with that, if there is sudden requirement of money for recreational purpose, so that is a different thing. Then it is just 15 to 20% of the entire monthly income is actually gets saved. So with that much of money, the rising cost of constructing a building for a family is so high that money is sometimes not sufficient. So that is where the housing affordability as a concept comes into play. So housing is considered affordable when housing cost does not exceeds 30% of household income. So that is what affordability would mean in case of housing sector. So high construction cost and inefficient material uses widens this gap. So there is a need of low cost construction in these scenarios. So nearly 65 million people in India live in slums or informal settlements, results in growth of informal settlement slums. So that is why when people are not able to afford good quality houses, they eventually move into slums, or they construct some very improper housing for themselves, which at times leads to compromise in safety, in also in other issues. So that is where or leads to unauthorized housing by occupying government land and all that private property within the city. So that leads to construction of informal settlements. So lack of affordable housing affects the quality of life, because there is a dedicated space that is being set by Government of India through NBC, that is National Building Code, and through some other policy documents, that a minimum area that is to be required for healthy living is defined. But in such informal settlements, that is actually not possible, because within 3 by 3 meter or less than that, the entire family of 4 or 5 resides. So that is actually not a proper way for living, and it leads to compromise in quality of life, and also compromises the overall sustainability domain. Low cost construction techniques can significantly reduce initial housing cost by at least 15 to 30%. Then as I was mentioning you about low cost construction, so why we have to move from conventional building to low cost construction? The one major factor, as I discussed earlier, was about the cost that is associated with conventional building material. But at the same time, the other concept that is attached to low cost construction is the affordability, the next parameter or the next attribute which is associated with low cost construction. So in that sustainability aspect, embodied energy has a major role to play. So embodied energy means it is the total energy invested in a building material. So that means the energy that is that goes behind the manufacturing of that material from the cradle, that means from where it is actually excavated. For example, if it is a steel, then it is excavated through mining, and possibly from there it is processed, brought to industries where it is refined, and then the byproduct is manufactured. From there it is transported to different cities, and from main headquarter or a main godown of that particular city, it is the main dealer is through that particular person, it is transported to different districts or different towns, and from the different these main centers of the town or city, it is transported to the place of construction. So you know that this entire chain, and in that how much of energy gets utilized because of that, how much of fossil fuel is burnt, how much of carbon is actually produced because of entire process. So that one is to understand and accordingly decide which material should be used when it comes to low cost construction or sustainable construction methods. So it includes energy used in extraction as well as processing and manufacturing. So along with that, it also includes transportation and the construction. During the construction, how much of carbon is emitted because of the use of that material. So this all is a component of embodied energy. It represents the hidden energy cost. So embodied energy in building materials, industrial materials, almost all industrial materials like cement, steel, glass, aluminium have high embodied energy, because it for example, in case of cement, it generates about 0.8 tons to 0.9 tons of carbon dioxide during the manufacturing of every ton of cement. So with this you can understand how much of carbon dioxide is actually produced due to the manufacturing of cement. So similarly for other materials also. So for other materials like steel, glass, aluminium. So this is why we have to minimize the use of such ultra processed material. Rather we should promote the use of locally available or natural materials like stone, earth, bamboo and timber. So use of locally sourced material can reduce transportation energy by at least 10 to 20%, because the transportation cost is actually minimized because of that. So the selection of material influences carbon emission, cost of construction and sustainability performance of the building. So these are all associated with how better you understand about the material and you use during the construction. Then the other aspect to be understood is environmental impact due to buildings. So buildings account for a significant share of energy consumption, such as 36% of global energy is required for by the building sector. 20 to 25% of global fresh water is utilized for the construction, because when we mix concrete, or when we prepare mortar, or when we do curing of the entire building, so it consumes too much of fresh water, and it is not possible to use saline water in that context, or all that grey water for that purpose. So that is where why it utilizes fresh water, and this much significant percentage of fresh water goes behind the construction industry. Then at least 30 to 40% of global raw materials is utilized by buildings. So all that we excavate from earth is actually used for these purposes. So construction activities leads to solid waste, air and noise pollution, and covers ground cover. So when you have seen that in Delhi, due to excess air pollution, so they government recommends implementation of GRAB 1, GRAB 2, GRAB 3 and other guidelines are implemented by the government. So during that process, at some initial stages, they stop the construction process or the entire construction within the city, because during construction lot of dust is actually produced, and that contributes to air pollution, and also it is very machine intense methods that is involved. So noises are also generated, so a lot of waste is generated, plus the ground cover, which wherein earlier it was used for using at least recharging groundwater, that is actually stopped. So overall construction is not actually a sustainable process on its own, but there are ways by which we can minimize unsustainability in construction sector. So these has to be understood in some of the topics that I will cover in the presentation, in upcoming presentation. We will elaborate more on this. at later stage. The next is on rating systems. So rating systems provide a framework to certify sustainable and eco-friendly buildings. So there are some organizations like GRIHA, IGBC. So these are the acronyms which are very much common in building industry, and these are used to define what's the percentage of sustainable building is this. So they have some guidelines through which, if it is fulfilled, it is certified as platinum, diamond or gold rated building. So this is the level of sustainability that is achieved in the construction. So that is there. So it evaluates the energy efficiency, water conservation, material selection and waste management. So these are the four broad parameters that are being assessed while the green rating or the rating system of the buildings depends on. Then in this context, especially in case of rating system, green buildings are actually a byproduct of the rating system. So green buildings are planned, designed, constructed and operated to reduce negative environmental impact, and that is where if it is certified as green building, possibly IGBC, GRIHA, LEED, so they have rated that building, and it is a sustainable building. So key focus areas include energy efficiency, water conservation and sustainable site planning through landscape design. So these are the focus areas in green buildings. So it emphasizes on passive design strategies. So I will elaborate more on this in the coming presentation. Also it promotes the use of eco-friendly and low embodied energy materials. Overall, it tries to improve the indoor environment quality, wherein thermal comfort, daylighting, indoor air quality. So all this is actually enhanced in that context. So overall, by this you must have understood that low cost materials and low cost construction has a sustainability also as a major aspect associated to it. So overall, it can be said that low cost construction supports sustainability by reducing material and energy consumption. So efficient planning and design helps anyone who designs low cost construction minimize the material wastage. So use of local and traditional material reduces transportation energy and the construction cost. So affordable and sustainable housing improves social inclusion and the living condition, that is overall the quality of life is enhanced. So to conclude this presentation, it can be summarized that low cost building focuses on cost efficiency without compromising safety, quality or the performance of the building. Rising housing demand and affordability gaps highlights the need for innovative construction approaches. Embodied energy, which is a critical factor to determine whether you are using a correct material for construction in terms of sustainability or not, that has to be understood. Buildings significantly impact the environment, making sustainable construction very much essential. Environment rating systems helps guide and evaluate the green building practices which is going on in the building industry. Low cost construction and green buildings together offer a practical and sustainable solution for affordable housing. So to give you some exercise at the end of lecture, you can write in your answer sheets and explain and elaborate on why low cost construction is necessary in Indian context, why it has to be promoted in the current scenario especially, and also have you seen any low cost building or any project of low cost construction in recent years in India. So you can explore more on that and understand the materials that is used, or there is any special technique that is being used which minimizes the cost of construction. So these are some small activities which you can do after this lecture. So in our next lecture, I'll discuss on building cost components and the influencing factors. These are some of the references that you can refer for more understanding on low cost construction. So with this, I'd like to conclude my presentation, and I hope that this topic about low cost construction will be of interest to you, and you will continue this particular lecture for the remaining 12 weeks. Thank you so much.